Let us go through the looking glass with young Alice, her mother reading the story. But let me tell the story from Gilles Deleuze, The Logic of Sense. Gilles Deleuze starts out in the 5th series. Sense is never only one of the terms of the duality which contrast things and propositions, substantives and verbs, denotations and expressions. It is also the frontier, the cutting edge, or the articulation of difference between the two terms, since it has at its disposal an impenetrability which is its own and within which it is reflected. So as we go through the looking glass, for these reasons, sense must be developed for its own sake in a series of paradoxes which we are now internal. So we go through the looking glass, and what happens? Things start to shift. Sense is like a big sphere in which I am already established in order to enact possible denotations. Those are the indexicals, if you recall from our early presentation, in which I'm already established. This is an antenarrative sense of the word sense and the word thinking. Sense is always presupposed. When I begin to tell a story, I would never state the sense of what I am saying, but that sense is already there, and thus sense is part of the antenarrative fabric. Antenarrative is a portmanteau word, as we shall learn in The Return of Humpty Dumpty, as he explains to Alice what is a portmanteau word. That'll be coming up. So, antenarrative means antecedent and narrative. So the two words are combined in shortened form, antenarrative. But then I take off and develop 7 different senses of antenarrative throughout my career, and you can go to antenarrative.com to figure that one out. In Alice and the Night, there's a sequence, and it's about the naming of a song. Let me give you a song for which you're familiar, the Christmas song. If I say the Christmas song to you, what comes to mind? Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Well, it's like that. But in Alice and the Night announces the title of a song as a haddock's eyes. The name of the song. And Alice, trying to feel interested, is saying, no, you don't understand. The Knight said, looking at, very vexed, that's what the name of the song is called. The name really is the aged man. And that's like the Christmas song is really called the Christmas song, but its title is Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire. Then I thought to have said, that's what the song is called. Alice corrected herself. No, you ought to, that's quite another thing. The song called Ways and Means. But that's only what it's called, you know. Well, what's the other song then? Said Alice, who was at this time completely bewildered and frustrated by the night. I was coming to that, the Knight said. The song really is a sitting on the gate. Here's Alice with the flowers in a wonderful scene by this movie, and it's depicted in a number of movies. We're just commenting on one particular movie here. And there's a series of entities that happen in progression, sitting on the gate. For example, the progression from the name of a song to the theme of the song that becomes the name of a song and what is known in popular culture. Stepping through the looking glass. She has a question, what's on the other side of the looking glass? And there, indeed, she wants to avoid the infinite regress, the doubling and doubling and doubling that you find in Lewis Carroll's work, and engaging what Deleuze calls the being and the extra being. In other words, the world and the other world. And I'm a Q shamanism, quantum shamanism advocate, and I'm interested in the other world. Here I'm wearing my shirt about enchantment. I live in New Mexico. There's nothing new in New Mexico, and it's not Mexico. And one could argue very few places is it enchanted, and what was enchanted is quickly turning into suburbs, but that's another topic for another time. And so as we progress through Deleuze and his series on what is sense, he's very concerned about overcoming the paradox of neutrality. You recall in the earlier session I did about the mouse who was telling the dry story about William the Conqueror, and that didn't drive people from the pool of tears that they'd fallen into. But when they had a caucus race, a group of them raced and raced and raced, and everybody was a winner, nobody was a loser, they all got dry. And so what Deleuze is getting at now is he wants to take us through four things about this situation. Now, let's call the situation of storytelling. It has a quality, it has a quantity, it has a modality. Let's look at some of these things. Interesting for diversity, equity, inclusion seminars. He talks about quantity. All men are white. No man is white. Some men are not white. Or the relationship. The case of the inverse relationship. That has a whole different sense now in 2023 than it did in the time of Lewis Carroll. Events are never causes of one another, but rather enter into relationship of quasi-causality, of the unreal and the ghostly. So there's the quality. We could say Alice is not, and must at the same time be virtue of the autonomy of sense in relation to the existence of the denotation. If you recall, denotation is, this Alice, that red queen, that forest, this tree, those flowers, those are indexicals. Well, let us turn to what is the modality here. The modality is how reality has some sort of necessary sense. And the necessary sense is, do we just roll over in our predictions about the future from what's in the past? That would be the retrospective narrative. It says, oh, things are going along, and they have their beginning, middle, and end. Clean over here so you can see the star of the show. And we're just fated to repeat what has happened before. And that's the time of Lewis Carroll. That was the Stoic Scottish thesis at the